A good puzzle for your pen and paper RPG might also be a powerful tool to enhance other aspects of the game. In this case, I want to give you an example how a riddle can be the setup for a fighting arena that gives your players multiple options for more strategical depth. In this video, I will stay system agnostic, which means you will have to adapt it to the rule set you are using, which also gives the opportunity to adjust it to the character's level and player's skill set. On the other hand, it will be quite adaptable in terms of context. Whenever your group needs to go from A to B and there is a choke point, you can use it. You should only make sure that the group has no way of easily going around it. It doesn't matter if it's a classic dungeon, a room within a larger building, or a natural bottleneck like a canyon. But enough introduction, let's get to the point. The players get into the room and find a life-size chessboard. They enter from the white side and find a stalemate, where white cannot make any legal move without getting checkmate. When a character enters the board, initiative is drawn. The chess factions have two options to act. They can either make a normal chess action, so move or take another piece, or they can attack the player characters. I will explain how in just a moment. General recommendations regarding initiative and combat behavior. Each of the two chess factions should only do one action per round and keep a fixed position within the order, so they alternate and don't have two consecutive actions against each other. That means you have an initiative for every player, one for the white chess pieces and one for the black. If a faction, most likely the white, cannot do a move, it won't. To make it more interesting, as a DM, you might want to try to use different pieces when attacking the players, or it will become a one-woman show quite quickly, which diminishes the strategical aspect. So, what can the pieces actually do? As mentioned before, I keep it somewhat general here, but try to give as much guidance as possible to help you adapt it for your group. Each piece is present on this particular board, so we need all stats. Attack should be clear. How easy do I hit and how much does it hurt? Defense, I mean how hard is it to hit that enemy, while absorption should describe how much damage that piece can take. Some systems have a dedicated stat for that, otherwise just give it more hit points. The rook is a good example. It should be fairly easy to hit a solid tower, but it will tank quite a lot of hits. An overview for everything is shown on screen. I will not read it out. Regarding the attack, I try to balance range and melee units, where melee in general hits a little harder because range is obviously more flexible. Nevertheless, the overall intent was to stay close to the chess rules while creating an interesting setup. By giving the pieces so tight rules, the players might be able to create very exploitable setups because they can move more freely, but that's by design. After all, it's partly a puzzle and they should feel smart solving it. And in this case, solving means finding advantageous positions. As it should do, the game ends when the enemy king is defeated. There is no need to kill all the pieces, but I would recommend that you let the players execute the king and not only set a checkmate to create a satisfying closure. To develop it beyond being a simple combat encounter for the players, I'd suggest that you have a little roleplay outro where the white king comes alive and interacts with the characters. He might make remarks on how the battle played out, like, "My bravest knight sacrificed himself to save the day," or "My loyal wife gave her life to ensure victory." At this opportunity, you can also handle out some loot, maybe the crown of the Black King or his imperial orb. It could also be the dark scepter of the queen with its inherent magic. Spend some thought of that beforehand. While playing, you will have to pay close attention to the positions on the board. If the king is set check, the game might end next round. Give the players a notification about that if they didn't notice themselves. A character cannot set a king check because he has to attack him and does not automatically take him, but any character can prevent a check by just standing in the way. The chess pieces cannot move through a blocked field. Now that the setup is established, let's talk about the most important option this puzzle has. You can allow the players to control the white pieces. That can be done in multiple ways, but I will outline some rules I made good experiences with. To give an order should not be a free action, but require a skill check in whatever feat you find suitable. Maybe the difficulty might even be different for various pieces. A pawn might be easier to boss around than a king. With that much resources at hand, the players can have quite a good battlefield control and use position advantages even more. In addition, it gives characters who normally have a less active role in combat a chance to shine. And some final remarks. If you are playing with a group in real life, do yourself and everyone on the table a favor and get a real chessboard. You can put the character miniatures or tokens on the board itself, and it's very immersive. When you plan this puzzle, you should beforehand find out if at least one of your players knows the chess rules, otherwise it might get a little difficult. But be careful. If she actually knows the rules and is quite good at it, prepare for discussions. The initial situations on the board would normally result in a draw and end the game. We do not do that here. We fight till victory! And speaking of chess and its rules, I'm not that familiar with it either. I looked for draw endings, and apparently this is a quite famous example of Troitsky versus Vogt in 1896. It suited the puzzle quite well, so I took it. That's for declaring my sources. I hope you and your group can have some fun with this little challenge.